There is a moment in certain men's lives when the sky stops being decoration and becomes a direct question. Elias didn't look for it. It came without warning, one night beside the river. Elias met that moment at 31, on his knees in the mud, with the sound of the Ashkar River filling his ears and a light that shouldn't exist breaking through the clouds from the north. It wasn't lightning. Lightning lasts an instant and fades on its own. This stayed. It grew. And when Elias tried to look away from that light, he found he couldn't. From inside, that light came something no known word could contain. A living structure in constant motion, surrounded by figures whose faces changed depending on the angle from which you looked at them, never fixed, never still. Sometimes like those of a man, sometimes like those of a hawk, sometimes like those of a bull from the eastern plains. Over all of it turned circles within circles, every surface covered in eyes that looked in every direction at once. Above that endless movement floated something as solid as northern ice, motionless in the middle of everything spinning around it. On that platform of crystallized light stood a throne that appeared to have been made by no hand at all. On the throne, someone. A figure that burned without being consumed, surrounded by an arc of colors Elias had never seen together in the same sky, and that had no name in any language he knew. He fell face first, without deciding to. His knees hit first, then his palms, and the cold mud of the riverbank received him without making a sound. And then the voice came, not from above or below, from everywhere at once and from no particular point. Like thunder, you can't tell where it begins. Elias, get up. You have something to say, and a people who need to hear it, even if they don't want to. He was no speaker, no prophet, no man of public authority. He was the youngest son of a family of scribes, accustomed all his life to copying other people's words. But the voice left no room for refusal. What came next was a scroll, rolled, dense, written on both sides in tight lettering. The hand that extended it was made of fire, and yet Elias took it. These words go into your mouth. Speak even if they ignore you. Warn even if they mock you. Because when it's all over, they will know that someone stood among them and told them the truth. Elias brought the scroll to his lips. He expected something bitter, but it tasted like honey from the western hills. Because the truth, even when it hurts, even when no one wants to hear it, has a taste that resembles no lie. The vision closed. The sky became just sky again. Elias was left alone on the riverbank with something new lodged deep in his chest, a certainty he hadn't asked for and could no longer return. It had all begun long before that night. The people of Raventh had spent 14 years far from their city, displaced by force by the armies of the Eastern Empire. The exiles lived along the banks of the Ashkar, in camps of canvas and wood, carrying their traditions and the memory of Cauldron, their lost city, as the only possession no one could confiscate. The elders spoke of Cauldron as though it were a dream everyone had shared on the same night, and from which none of them had fully woken. The young knew it only through those stories told by firelight at night. They no longer knew whether to believe in the city or only in its absence. Elias was 31 when he began to change. His father had been a temple scribe, his grandfather too, and his great-grandfather before them. If Cauldron was still standing, Elias would have followed that line without a single step away. But Cauldron was no longer standing, and Elias copied merchants' letters to pay his share of the common firewood. He spent his afternoons by the river, because it was the only place where the air smelled different. There he listened to the old men argue. There he waited for something he couldn't name. One afternoon, his wife Martha found him sitting on the bank, with his eyes fixed on the water or on something the water didn't hold, and she watched him without speaking for a while. "You've been sitting here for hours without moving. People in the camp ask questions, and you don't show up to answer them." "I don't have answers to give them, Martha." And lying to them to make them feel better isn't something I'm going to do either. They don't always want answers, Elias. Sometimes they just want you to be present with them, to not disappear. What for? To tell them everything's going to be fine when honestly I don't know if it's going to be fine? She sat down beside him and looked at the river. Nobody expects you to know everything, but they do expect you not to disappear. That same week, a man named Samuel approached Elias by the fire. He was the most respected among the elders, not for wisdom, but for his ability to keep morale alive with a theory he repeated so often it had started to sound like prayer. I've received news from those still in Cauldron. There are signs the Empire might withdraw sooner than any of us thought. What if it lasts longer than anyone calculates? Said Elias, with a calm that unsettled more than anger would have. The people here need to believe we're going back soon. It's what keeps us standing when everything else fails. Believing something doesn't make it true. No. But it helps you survive until the truth has room to arrive. Elias didn't answer, but he'd been carrying for weeks a low, persistent voice that told him things were not going to get better soon. Until the sky opened that night, and he could no longer ignore it. The following day, Elias walked to the center of the camp and waited in silence. When people started moving around him, he spoke. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Listen to me. Cauldron is not going to recover anytime soon. The reason isn't the Eastern Empire. It's what we ourselves chose before they ever arrived. The silence that followed wasn't one of attention or respect for his words. It was exactly the silence that comes before a storm. Samuel was the first to stand. And you come here to take away what little these people have left? I'm taking nothing from them. I'm telling them what I saw, what you think you saw, what I saw, and what I was given to say even if I'd rather not. Some nodded toward Samuel. Others watched Elias with something different, a persistent doubt settling slowly in the eyes of someone who can't look away from something that bothers them. Elias understood that words alone wouldn't be enough. Something more was needed. Something the body could see even when the ears refused to listen. The next morning they found him lying in the center of the camp, face up toward the sky, motionless, arms at his sides. "What are you doing there? Get up." "I can't. I received instructions to remain here, 1 day for every year of accumulated debt owed by our people. 400 days in total. Some laughed openly, others worried in silence, but everyone came back the next day to see if he was still there, and he was. Week after week, under the sun and the rain, under mockery and the most uncomfortable silence, Elias remained in his place, as though his body had become part of the camp's ground. If this means something, what does it mean for Cauldron? It means nothing. He's a man who's lost his mind and his dignity at the same time. When the 400 days had passed and Elias finally stood up, he lit a fire and began preparing bread in silence. Those who saw him came closer out of curiosity, then they stepped back in disgust. That's unclean. This is how those who remain in Cauldron will eat when the siege comes, without honor. Like beggars among the ruins of what was once their city. Weeks later, Elias appeared with iron shears. In silence, he cut his hair and beard down to the roots. He divided the hair into 3 portions. The first he burned, the second he cut with a knife, the third he released into the wind. This is how the people of Cauldron will end. 1/3 through hunger and disease, another under the sword, the last scattered across the Empire's territories with no way back together. But there will be survivors, few, but there will be. The camp divided that night. Those who rejected him with more force than before. Those who were beginning to believe him in silence, looking at their hands. But everyone carried fear in some corner of their chest. If Elias is reaching you in any way, if his courage to say what no one wanted to hear has moved something inside you, this is a good moment to like the video and subscribe. Tell us in the comments. Would you have had the courage to do what Elias did? Or would you have stayed silent like everyone else? The people didn't listen. In Cauldron, those who held power kept making exactly the same decisions as always, as if nothing Elias had said existed. And one night, in that state between sleep and waking, Elias was taken to his lost city. But what he saw wasn't the city his father had described to him so many times. Inside the most sacred place in Cauldron, the walls were covered in representations of the gods of the empire. The counselors burned offerings to Eastern figures. The women wept rituals in honor of foreign deities. The very center of what Cauldron had been was contaminated from the inside, not the outside. Elias cried out inside that vision, "How is this possible? This place is supposed to represent something true and real." And the voice answered with a calm, more devastating than any possible anger, "That is why I withdraw. I don't abandon them. They push me away." And then Elias saw something no man of Raventh had ever witnessed. The presence that filled that place, that had filled it since the beginning, began to move toward the edges of the sanctuary. It moved slowly to the main entrance and stopped there, like someone waiting at the threshold to be called back before leaving. The call never came. It crossed the walls of Cauldron and settled on the eastern hill. It waited once more. The people still didn't turn around. And then, slowly, with a silent dignity that caused more damage than any explosion, the presence rose above the hill and disappeared. "Don't leave them like this," said Elias from inside the vision. "They have chosen. I take nothing from them that they haven't already let go of themselves." The news arrived weeks later. The army of the Empire had completed the encirclement of Cauldron. Hunger arrived before the soldiers did. The leaders who had ignored everything now cried out in the same rooms where they had burned incense before gods who never answered. When the last gate gave way, the soldiers entered without resistance. The temple was dismantled stone by stone, and the black smoke over Cauldron was visible from the camp for 2 full days. Samuel came that night to where Elias was sitting. His shoulders were fallen, and his eyes were those of someone who has carried something too long and is finally letting it go. "It was true," Samuel said in a low voice without lifting his gaze. "Everything you said from the beginning." Elias looked at the fire before answering, without hurry. "I didn't want to be right. I wish I'd been wrong about all of it." "Then why did you say it if you knew they weren't going to listen? Because staying silent would have been worse, for all of us, not just for me." There was a long silence. In the distance, someone was crying without making noise, the kind of crying that isn't looking for comfort, but only for a place to exist. And now, what's left for us after all this? We haven't reached that part of the story yet, but we will. The grief over Cauldron was slow and collective. The one who stopped saying its name aloud, the one who began teaching her son the Empire's language, the old man who died far from where he was born. One night before dawn, Elias was taken again without being called. This time there were no ruins, no smoke. There was only an open and silent field beneath a sky completely without clouds. And in that field there were bones, many, scattered, bleached by years of sun and total abandonment. He recognized them without anyone needing to tell him. They were his people, what remained of what they had been. He walked among them for a time he couldn't measure. His footsteps made no sound on the bones, and the voice came from everywhere at once. "Do you truly believe this can live again?" Elias looked at the bones for a moment. "I don't know, but you do. Then speak over them. Say something that matters. To the bones. To the bones. Speak." Elias breathed slowly, and he spoke. He told the dry bones that something was calling them back, that their story hadn't ended yet, that the scattering wasn't the final chapter of everything. And the bones began to move. They joined together, Tendons covered them first, then flesh, then skin. Whole bodies still complete, without breath yet. Now tell the wind to come. Elias obeyed. The wind entered from all four horizons. The bodies breathed. They stood up, and there were many of them. This is your people. The problem was never the Eastern Empire. It was what was inside them before the Empire ever arrived. And that too, I am going to restore from the inside outward. How? By giving them a heart that wants to do good instead of one that has to be forced. Rules carved in stone can be ignored. The ones written inside are harder to abandon. And before the vision ended, Elias saw a leader, not a king with armies, someone whose authority came from what he was, not from force, whose rule generated loyalty without asking for it, someone who would keep governing long after the eternal empires had become only names in records no one read. Elias didn't know his name, but he knew he would come. He woke before dawn, with the silence of the camp around him. Martha was sleeping at his side. The ashkar sounded exactly as it always did. He got up slowly, without making noise, and went outside. He sat on the riverbank where everything had begun. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't waiting for anything. He sat down simply because he wanted to be there. Samuel appeared shortly after with 2 cups of something hot. He sat beside him without saying anything for a good while. They say you had one of those visions again. Yes. Good or bad? Both. First the hard part, then what's worth waiting for. And how long until all that arrives? I don't know. But the most important question isn't that one. It's what we become while we wait. Samuel looked at the water through a long silence. That's harder to answer. Yes, the questions that truly matter always are. And in the 25th year of exile, when many had stopped using the word return because even saying it hurt too much, Elias was taken one final time. He was standing on a mountain he didn't recognize, looking down from above at a city that wasn't Cauldron, but that deeply resembled what Cauldron could have been if it had chosen differently. In the center of that city was a building that was not just a building. It had an internal proportion that made everything surrounding it find its natural place without effort. A being Elias couldn't describe afterward appeared at his side. Look carefully. Remember everything you see. It isn't only for you. And then the light came from the east, slow at first, then intense, until it filled the central courtyard and stayed, like a permanent inhabitant. And Elias saw the river. It began at the threshold, grew until it couldn't be crossed, and wherever it reached, the desert stopped being desert. This is not a river of water. It's what happens when what should flow finally flows again. This city will have a name, the place where the presence never left. Elias woke up. Everything was the same, and at the same time, nothing was exactly the same. That afternoon, he spoke with the calm of someone who has seen the ending and knows many chapters remain. What we lost wasn't Cauldron, it was direction, and that can be recovered when we change. Martha took his hand. Do you think they'll listen this time? Some will, and that's always enough. Outside, the ashkar ran indifferent. But Elias knew there are currents that can't be seen, that make no noise, and those are the ones that determine where everything is headed. They don't stop, because they come from a place where time has no authority over promises. If this story stayed with you until the end, thank you. A like, a subscription, and a comment telling us which part stayed with you most is all we need to keep going. See you in the next video.